It can sound so appealing to run a project remotely from your home, but it may not be all that it seems. And in this video, I'm going to share with you remote project management challenges and solutions so that you can slay your projects. Loss of motivation. So, I know, hot topic, first one right away, but it's really going to help your motivation. Okay, I don't need to tell you the benefits of working remotely. We all know that there's cost savings. You don't have to deal with those long commutes. In fact, sometimes we feel like, oh my goodness, we're not distracted because no one's knocking on our door and interrupting us all the time. So we probably get more done. Our productivity increases. However, there is the other side to it, and one of that is the loss of motivation. So when everyone is working remotely on your team, you don't have that connection. You don't see what's going on with other people, and sometimes people don't see what's going on with you. They don't understand that bigger picture. And then there's that disconnectivity. With that disconnectivity can come a loss of motivation. You're just busy doing your thing without understanding the greater connectivity to the project as a whole. And even motivating you to do things because you were part of a bigger meeting, a hallway conversation. But again, that loss of motivation becomes really important because it can have a spiraling effect for your team members. And it becomes critical as a project manager that you have your finger on the pulse when it comes to understanding the motivation of your team. So what's a solution to this loss of motivation? Well, you want to ensure that when you have your team meetings that you are connected with them. And the best way to do that is to have your video on. I know, everyone's going to say, Adriana, I don't want to have my video on. I'm working from home. I don't like it. I get it. And I know this is controversial, but when I see you, just like in a regular meeting, I can read up on so many more cues. Like, are you connected? Is there motivation in you? I can't do that when I can't see you. And if all of our meetings are run with video off, then I'm really at a disadvantage as a project manager to help you, and vice versa as a team member. Doesn't mean that every single meeting you have to have your video on. Again, you try to find some sort of balance that's going to work for everybody in the room. So what's a solution to loss of motivation when you are doing remote project management? First and foremost is you have to be intentional with your communication. Communication is going to be critical, but it's even more so with a remote team. So you have to be really clear with how often you communicate with them. When information comes to you, you need to disseminate that to your team. Everyone's remote, and the only way they're going to get information is if it comes from you. So your communication skills has to increase exponentially when you're working remotely. You can also have, what I like to do is I have newsletters that I send out to certain stakeholders. I even have a project SharePoint site that will have some communication information that I will update so that people are aware they have a central place to go to. I may even do some email communication. And if I have my core team meetings, I always have a section of, hey, here's what's new, so you need to be aware of it. If people heard information off to the side, that's fantastic, but you're going to have to do more repetition in your communication to make sure that everyone has received it. And a second thing that you want to also do when it comes to loss of motivation is acknowledge the work that people are doing. You don't have the luxury of, again, being in a central location, passing someone in the hallway going, hey, Jane, you know what? I got that report that you gave me, or I saw that that task was done. Great job on it, right? Because that's what we do when we, see people. We have those little hallway conversations. We don't do that when we work remotely. We probably read that report. Oh, great report. But now we have to make that added effort to either A, ping them on some sort of chat technique that you have, or whether it's Teams or Zoom or Slack or whatever it is. Or you're going to physically pick up a phone or you send an email. Again, there's more effort and energy, but it is so worth it if you really invest in communication in order to improve the motivation of your team. Before we continue to talk about remote project management, I want you to check this out. There's some common mistakes we all make with projects, and you are definitely going to want to download it. How do you do that? You go to the link below. Communication barriers is a big thing when it comes to remote project management. So communication barriers, what I see it get tied into is usually when we're doing remote work, there's also teams that are on different time zones as well. So there is a barrier of when we can get answers from a communication standpoint. So if I'm working on the East Coast and I have a team member who's working on the West Coast, I have to be very much aware of that time zone. Add in the extra complexity of even doing something further out, like if you have team members in India or in Australia, sometimes you have a day that lapses. So communication is not instantaneous. Communication usually is within a 24-hour window. So you really have to take a step back and not have that expectation or urgency for immediate answers, because you just may not get it. That's one of the challenges with remote project management. So how do you solve this? Because again, it's a communication barrier. It's not that instantaneous that we're getting. Look, you're probably gathering, it's all about setting up things properly, and you have to be aware of really having a good solid foundational project plan so you're not having to check in on things constantly. But the other thing that I do that I normally don't do if I'm in an office setting with a project is I will actually set up with my core project team members, okay guys, here's the way we're gonna work. We're gonna do things through our common SharePoint site, our WBS action plan. We're gonna communicate and update our status on things on our action plan every Friday. So I have all that established, but I will say to them this, I go, if we have a true emergency, what is the way we're gonna communicate with each other? Because it's not gonna be on the regular channels. This is where I will give out my cell phone number or my WhatsApp number to specific team members so that they can either text or call me. Because at this point, the barrier of trying to get something from someone immediately, particularly if I'm firefighting, is going to be uber critical. Now, try to nip that in the bud, and you usually can nip it in the bud if you have really good project planning in advance of, so that these types of emergencies really won't come up and you're not going to be using it a lot. If you're using it a lot, then you got other problems. You don't have a strong project plan. But again, this is one of the challenges of remote project management. Lack of collaboration. Okay, remote project management, we're working in silos, the lack of communication, all of these challenges. Again, a lot of pros, but there's cons, and we can't ignore those cons. And one of those cons is the lack of collaboration. If we're all together in an office setting, it's really easy for me to collaborate with you because, it's even with my own team here at Cornerstone. We work in a hybrid scenario, and I find that when we're together in the office, oh my goodness, the collaboration is just natural because we're all together. And I find personally that I get a lot more answers versus when I'm working remotely, and we're all working remotely, and I may not think to reach out to one of my team members to validate something, and then time passes as well. So that instantaneous of collaboration, getting feedback, is missing remotely in a very natural setting that just kind of happens organically when you're all together. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have collaboration. It just means you have to plan for it, and that's the solution. You have to have more brainstorming, facilitation sessions than you normally would. And you got to plan those into your project and in your project schedule. So get your team together in order to plan out the action items. Start learning facilitation skills, and just don't have a meeting and wing it. You can't do that remotely. You really have to plan and prep things out. Have a clear agenda. How do you want to brainstorm? How are you going to get everyone to collaborate? Because again, they're on a screen in front of you, and it's not the same as being in a room, whiteboarding it and collaborating and everyone brainstorming that way. There is this disconnect. That's just the fact when it comes to remote work and working with the technology of a screen. And there's this lack of connection. You can't make that connection happen. So you have to do more brainstorming and facilitation, but you have to plan it out. And you want to do it in a way that's more interactive. So I usually do breakout rooms. I'm very in advance of, have exercises so that when we bring people together, they're now very much involved and the pace is a little bit faster versus if we were all in a room. It is what it is. It's, a little bit more work. Interestingly enough, I find remote project management a little bit more work. I have to think differently and do more things to make sure that we all have that connectivity. And it becomes critical from a collaboration standpoint. Technology hiccups. Yeah, I know. We all don't have the same internet speed. We all don't have the same internet tools. We all are not working in the same manner, which allows for ease when it comes to working remotely when it comes to our project. And that makes remote project management just another added layer. Have you ever been on a virtual meeting and someone's technology wasn't working? Or they got an update in the middle of presenting something? Oh my goodness, that's happened to me. It's happened to my team members. And all of a sudden, you now have to take 10 minutes out of your meeting in order to wait for those updates to occur, etc. It is what it is, and you can't change it. However, you have to be aware of it. So you have to build in those buffers. So a lot of times when I started with a project, you have to find out, hey guys, what's your speed? Do you have 2 screens, 1 screen? Because sometimes it's really easy to have information up and then still look at people. You have to talk about cameras, like all of that technology stuff. And ensure that your organization is supporting everyone so that you have the right technology so that you can be successful and it can be streamlined. What's a solution to this? All honesty, I think organizations should ensure that their team members have all the right tools. And if you're going to be working remotely, you have to have the right internet speed. And I know this may be difficult because there's some individuals who, let's say, work and live remotely somewhere and maybe their internet is not great. But if you're going to work remotely, I think there is an ownership as well for your project team members to make sure that they have the right technology in order to be successful. Otherwise, it just creates another level of complexity and it's going to stall progress of your project. It's just going to make it harder and take longer. It's not impossible, it's technology. And unless we all have the same tech, you're just going to come across those issues for sure. Now that you know the challenges when it comes to remote project management, you're going to want to know this too. You have to understand some of the issues you're going to come across in your projects, whether they're remotely or not. How can you get this? Well, you can get it from the link below this video. If you're working remotely with a global team, you even have more challenges, but I have you covered in this video, so definitely check it out. If you enjoyed the content that I had in this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider joining this amazing community. And on that note, I will see you at the next video.